Now, you welcome the ending of diplomatic relations between Iran and Australia, but there have been public calls for the withdrawal of the ambassador, the ending of relations, the listing of the Revolutionary Guards Corps for the last couple of years. And the Labor government here has resisted doing that until now. And over that period, it actually has called in the Israeli ambassador to be admonished over what's going on in the Middle East more often than the Iranian ambassador. Can you explain the reaction to that series of events in Israel?
Yeah, so first, when we are looking at these kind of actions and what you just said, we must mention the decision of the Albanese government to ban the entrance of a member of Knesset, Simcha Rotman, elected official in a democratic state, and before that of an activist, a Zionist activist, Hillel Fond, who lost his brother in a terror attack. And before it was the former Ministry of Interior, Ayelet Shaked, who is currently not in a position in the government. She was also banned and refused to enter the state. So in a way, the feelings that we get from the Albanese government is that we are being treated as if we are the enemies of Australia, as if we are the Iranians, or if we are an adversary. And we, the people in Israel, we see ourselves as allies of Australia, as allies of the Australian people. And it's actually shocking to see a democratic government siding with Hamas, with the terrorists that committed October 7th, going to recognize a Palestinian state in the middle of the war, regardless of the hostages. This is something which is, I think, tremendously harmful, and I don't think it will impact the feelings that we had towards the Australian people, but I think that it brings a big danger, not just for the hostages, not just for the state of Israel, but also for the Australian people. Look, we've been witnessed what happened in Sydney. We saw this huge march of tens of thousands of people on Sydney's bridge with Al-Qaeda flags, with ISIS flags, and the Palestinian flags.
Indeed. Let me just jump in there, if I could, Minister, because I want to ask you in specific relation to this. Do you know whether any Israeli intelligence has helped Australia to pin down the source of these attacks?
As far as I know, there are reports that are reliable reports that the intelligence did help the Australian with the information regarding the involvement of the Iranians in these terror attacks. And this is not something new. We share intelligence with Australia and with many other Western countries. And that is why we are so surprised to see a government that is taking one-sided actions, supporting Hamas, supporting terrorism, supporting the diplomacy of Iran, and turning it back towards the only democracy in the Middle East.
I've got to turn our attention to Gaza. You're getting a lot of criticism from the United Nations and other sources about deliberate starvation policies. Are people starving in Gaza, and is this a deliberate strategy of Israel's?
Not at all. First, there is no starvation in Gaza. Obviously, there is a humanitarian crisis because of the war. We need to remember that we didn't start this war. 1 second, we need to remember that this war can end tomorrow morning if Hamas lay down its weapons and release the hostages. So in the last months, since May to August, more than 50,000 tons of supply went into Gaza. This is an enormous number of supply, of food, of medics, etc. These numbers coming from the UN reports themselves. Now, one of the main problems is that a large portion of the supply was intercepted, according to the UN.
All right, but let me jump in, because I've reported on a lot of. I understand that, and my viewers understand that. I've explained that to them many times. We've also showed how there's been a lot of misreporting by various media agencies, passing off sick children are suffering, starvation, etc. I've also exposed how the UN just made up stories about 14,000 babies going to die within 48 hours and all the rest of it. But the question remains then, what is the situation? What is the true situation? Because you have competing claims. Why not just allow independent journalists into Gaza so that the world can verify the reality?
So first, the situation currently, after these 3 weeks of massive supply coming from the air, from Morocco, the UAE, etc., now the Gaza is flooded with supply that came through land and through air, and we can see that the prices of wheat and etc. Is very low comparing to what it was 2 months ago. So that is the current situation. The situation in terms of the supply is good. We also brought journalists to the distribution locations of the supply to see the process. Also, there's the GHF, which is an attempt to make sure that Hamas doesn't steal the food from the people. And that is also important. Regarding sending journalists into the battle zone, I'm not sure that this is a good idea. This is a war zone, and I think it might be extremely dangerous to just send the journalists into Gaza City at the moment. We brought more than 100 journalists to join the forces before this current operation, and I'm sure that during this operation there will also be an opportunity to bring journalists and show them the reality on the ground during the next stage of the operation.
We have gone over time, Amichai. I appreciate that. I'll try and catch up with you again sometime soon. Thanks so much for your time.
Thanks so much. Thank you for your work.
Amichai Chikli there, who's the Israeli minister for the diaspora around the world.